Hi there! So, because of all of the encouragement that I got from my friends and family, I decided that I would read you another book this week. So, this book has not been read in my classroom yet and has only been read by me a little bit. So, I am really excited to share this book with you. It is a biography about a wonderful man and his decision to bring color into the world. It is called The Crayon Man, the true story of the invention of Crayola crayons. Isn't that cool? I love it. Okay. It is written by Natascha Biebow and it's illustrated by Steven Salerno. Now, this book does not have a love letter. It actually has acknowledgments, which we'll find at the end of the book, but I'll remember to read them to you. Now, there is something right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it says, choose a color, give it a name, draw a picture. So if you would like to, sometimes my students like to color when we are doing read aloud in my room. If you would like to color while I'm reading you this book, then you may do so. Just choose a color, give it a name, and draw a picture. The Crayon Man. Once, there was a man who saw color everywhere. He noticed the yellow-orange petals of the black-eyed Susans in his garden. He marveled at the rich scarlet-red tones of the cardinal's feathers. He admired the deep blue greens of the waves in the sea. Color made him really, really happy. Look at how happy he is. Sometimes you don't need to show your teeth to show how happy you are. But all day long, at work, all he saw was black. Black dust, black tar, black smoke, black ink, black dye, black shoe polish. His company sold carbon black, a new kind of pigment or colored substance made from the soot of burning oil and natural gas. People used it in printing inks, electric street lamps, and stove and shoe polish. It also made rubber car tires last much longer. That was a lot of information. I'm sure that if I were in class right now, my students would be making a lot of text-to-world connections about some of these examples that we were given in the company that he works at. But look at the difference. So he said that he loved color. Look at him over there. He looks upset. He doesn't look the same. Just look at his mustache. Let's see what it looked like before we started. Looks different, doesn't it? Different mustache. Different feeling. His name was Edwin Binney, and he was an inventor. He worked with his cousin C. Harold Smith. Together, they were Binney and Smith. Seems like a pretty normal name, Binney and Smith. They look like pretty cool guys to me. The mustache is what does it. Harold was a great salesman. He loved to travel the world. Edwin was curious. He had a knack for listening and making what people needed. So a knack is something that you're really good at. So he had a knack for doing those things. I wonder which one you're relating to the most right now. Edwin invented a new kind of inexpensive slate pencil that wrote very smoothly. It was gray. Children loved it. He invented a kind of chalk that wasn't dusty and didn't crumble. It was white, and teachers loved it. Yeah, I love it. I love chalk. He invented a wax crayon that would write on wood and paper packaging. It was really, really black. People loved it. Paper was expensive in the 1800s. The 1800s. Think about that. It's 2020. The 1800s. I know you guys can do some math. So children wrote with slate pencils or chalk on slates. Slates were small handheld blackboards, so kind of like what this little guy has right here. That was slate. So when everyone, including Edwin's wife, Alice, told him that children needed better, cheaper crayons, he listened. They said, "The crayons we have are big, dull, and clumsy. The lumps of colored clay only make fat, clunky lines. And the artist crayons from Europe are far too expensive. They crumble and break easily. Some are even poisonous." Oh. Alice used to be a school teacher, so she knew what children needed. She encouraged Edwin to invent the crayons. Edwin thought about his company's inventions. When you drew a picture with their gray slate pencil, it rubbed off at the drop of a hat. When you drew a picture with their white chalk, it smudged everywhere. Can we agree chalk does smudge everywhere? I think we can. If you drew a picture with Edwin's new really black crayon, it was, well, really black. None of these inventions was any good for drawing in color. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Foreshadowing. Foreshadowing. So Edwin listened, and Edwin invented. In a small stone mill in Pennsylvania, a top-secret lab, Edwin's team experimented. A top-secret lab, that sounds really cool. How could they make better, stronger crayons? Melted paraffin wax? Perhaps. The first colored crayons invented in Europe were made from a mixture of charcoal and oil, so they broke easily. To make stronger crayons, Edwin tried using wax instead. Okay, Edwin might be onto something, right? Trying some new things. He's being a good problem solver. Now, for the crayon colors, grinding up rocks and minerals into fine powders. Mixing slate for gray, earth for yellow, red and brown, perhaps? Oh, yes, and lapis for blue. Pounding, sifting, and heating the colored powders. Would they be bright enough? Edwin's team kept on trying. They kept on experimenting. I'm making a text-to-world connection right now, or actually a text-to-movie connection of Meet the Robinsons. It said they kept on experimenting, and I'm thinking of that quote, keep moving forward. I like that. Ground up rocks and minerals made bright pigments for crayons. Red iron oxide, or hematite, for red. Yellow iron oxide, goethite, for yellow. Varied shades of red iron oxide for brown. Carbon black for black. Zinc oxide for white. And imported ultramarine made from lapis lazuli for blue. That was a lot to take in and listen to. I will give you a close-up. If someone would like to screenshot that, you are more than welcome to do some more research on that. I know we have a lot of scientists listening right now that would probably be interested. They came home covered in color. Look at them. Look at their outfits. Oh, man. I want to look like that. That is so cool. They look determined, maybe even a little tired. I don't know. They look like they're going somewhere. They experimented some more and discovered a pinch of this pigment, a sploosh of that one, a little hotter, a little cooler, and voila, lots of different shades. Now, there were greens, oranges, violets, and pinks too. Edwin came home covered in color. To make orange, green, and violet, chemists blended various pigments and clays. Some minerals changed color when they heated. Plus, the length of time the mixtures were left to cool created different colors too. Interesting. Temperatures can change colors. That's really neat. I mean, if you think about it this way, if you guys eat tomato soup, whenever tomato soup is heated up, it's that bright red, but if you leave it sit for a long time, it gets kind of like a rusty red. Maybe that's kind of something they're talking about. In a large tub at the mill, Edwin's team measured out the ingredients. Melted wax, clay to thicken, something for texture, colored powders, each in just the right amount every time to make a top secret formula. Slowly, carefully, stirring by hand, they poured the special formula into thin, crayon-shaped molds, smaller than any other inventor's, just the right size for children's hands. The mixture cooled and hardened. Edwin watched, and Edwin waited. That is so neat, guys. That's so awesome. He made them perfect for little hands to hold. That's so sweet. Children might eat or chew the crayons and get sick. So Edwin's team experimented to find new, safe, non-toxic colors and materials. That was very kind of him. No one should get harmed when they are trying to color. Finally, one summer evening in June 1903, okay, there was a date before this, it was in the 1800s, when every student or child was writing on slate to learn. We're in 1903. Edwin wasn't alive back in the 1800s, but that was just a little bit of history to help us understand the timeline better of why he was making crayons. Edwin came home covered in color and announced that he had invented a new kind of colored crayon. But what should he call it? Alice had an idea. She said, let's mix the French word cray for stick of chalk and the word ola from the word oleaginous, meaning oily, like the oily texture of the crayon wax, to invent a new word. Crayola. Crayola. Edwin listened. This is so cool! Did you hear that? That's the history of how Crayola got its name. What an amazing thing. Let's go back. I want to hear it again. Cray means stick of chalk. Oleaginous means oily, like when you hold a crayon, the oily texture. Many, many things are happening here and they are really cool. Binney and Smith shipped out the first Crayola crayon boxes. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, brown, and black. 8 colored crayons for only a nickel. How much does a nickel cost? How much? 5 cents! Crazy! All of that for 5 cents. That's really neat. Edwin waited. Would children like them? Now I have to go back real quick, because 5 cents back then in 1903 is a lot different than what it would cost us right now. So while that may sound really cheap and affordable to us today, it probably was affordable, yes, back then, but not as inexpensive as we're thinking. What would they think? Would they like them? Children did. Now they could draw a tiny green caterpillar or the big blue sky. Their drawings wouldn't smudge and they wouldn't rub out. They were bright and could last a long, long time. By the 1900s, inventors had figured out how to make cheaper paper from wood pulp, so children could now draw on paper instead of just slate. Isn't that awesome? That is so neat. So now they can draw with crayons on paper. In the 1900s, inventors were doing crazy stuff back then. Excitement over the new colorful invention spread like wildfire. Admirers from far and wide flocked to marvel at Binney and Smith's inventions at the St. Louis World's Fair. The company Dustless Chalk even won a gold medal. Proudly, Edwin and Harold showed it off, especially on their new Crayola crayon boxes. I grew up near St. Louis, near the first World's Fair. That is so awesome. I love that. That is so cool. Well, the first World's Fair with crayons. That's amazing. Every day, Edwin brought colorful bouquets from his garden to inspire the Crayola team. They made crayons in even more different shades, and later asked children to help name some of them. To celebrate their 19th anniversary, Crayola held a color naming competition. The 6-year-old winner coined Tropical Rainforest. Other color names created by children included Robin's Egg Blue, which I'm a huge fan of, Tickle Me Pink, and Macaroni and Cheese. Macaroni and cheese. Perfect. Look at these. So this is Tropical Rainforest. This was Robin's Egg Blue. Granny Smith Apple. That sounds yummy to eat. Macaroni and Cheese. And then this one just says Crayola. That is so, so interesting. At last, because of Edwin Binney, the man who saw color everywhere, who had a knack for listening and making what people needed, children all around the world could reach for just the right shade. Sunglow, Wisteria, Jungle Green, Screaming Green, Razzmatazz, I like that, Robin's Egg Blue, Wild Watermelon, Mauvelous, which is kind of like mauve, Purple, Mountain's Majesty, Cadet Blue, Lavender, Timberwolf, to draw anything. Wow. All because someone decided to listen and make what people needed. He's a pretty cool guy. Here's a little history for us all with pictures. So this says how Crayola crayons are made today. In 1903, Crayola crayons were made carefully in small lots, labeled and packed into boxes by hand and sold to schools. Today, machines produce an average of 12 million crayons a day. That's over 8,333 crayons a minute in more than 120 different colors. They are sold in over 80 countries around the world. So this first picture, it says, train cars deliver paraffin wax to the Crayola factory in Easton, Pennsylvania. The wax is heated and the clear melted liquid is stored in tall silos ready to be pumped inside. 2 says, workers pour colored powders called pigments into vats filled with the liquid wax. Add clay to thicken it, then mix. 3 says, the wax pigment, you can't see it, there we go. The wax pigment mixture is pumped into a huge mold. It looks like a giant circular muffin tin. The mix fills at the 110 small crayon-shaped holes in each section. And 4, cold water flows underneath the mold to cool the wax and harden it into crayon shapes. A large blade scrapes off extra wax to be reused later. 5 says the crayons are pushed up from the mold. A robotic arm then moves them to the labeling machine. Robots are cool. 6, pre-printed sticky labels on a huge drum are wrapped around each crayon 2.5 times. So not like the musical drum, but a kind of mechanical drum that will help them. 7, workers check the finished crayons and store them in large cardboard cartons, one for each color. 8, to make up the Crayola crayon boxes, workers place the crayons in the right order in the collating machine. A chute drops one of each color needed into a conveyor belt. 9, a robotic arm opens the flat-packed green and yellow Crayola boxes and sends them out onto the conveyor belt. Another arm pushes the collated crayons into each box and closes it. Wow. And 10, the boxes move down the conveyor belt to be packed into larger cartons. Crayola ships the finished crayons to the store, and they are sold to you. Wow, what a neat process. I had no idea. Okay, so this is just a little bit more about Edwin Binney and his life, and this is a picture of what he really looked like. I think the illustrator did a great job of drawing him. The mustache was spot on. Edwin Binney was born in 1866. As a child, he loved swimming, hunting, fishing, and sailing. So sailing is going in the boat on maybe the lake or the ocean. So that's really neat. I'm sure some of us love to do some of those things he liked to do. When he grew up and had to work in an office in the city, Edwin decided to build a house on some farmland by the sea in Old Greenwich, Connecticut. I have 2 friends from Connecticut. That's so cool. He planted a colorful vegetable and flower garden. Most mornings, he walked to the station with his daughters, listening for bird song. He wanted them to share his love of color and nature too. So this is a quote from Sally Putnam Chapman, and this was Edwin's great-granddaughter, so I'm about to read something that she said. My great-grandfather Edwin Binney was a gentle, kind, and generous man. A passionate lover of nature, Grandpa Bub rarely chose to be indoors, preferring the woods, the wind, the sea, and of course, his much-beloved Crayola flower garden, from which he cut and carried bouquets of color to his office each day. Oh, that is so sweet. Grandpa Bub. Funny and big-hearted, Edwin kept on listening and creating all his life. But of all his inventions...
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh, guys, I'm sorry. But of all his inventions, he loved the Crayola crayons most of all. I guess Siri was wanting to listen to us at the same time. His partner, C. Harold Smith, was the outgoing salesman, while Edwin worked at the factory with chemists and designers to create their products. So he loved Crayola crayons the most. That's so wonderful. The successful Crayola crayon business meant that Edwin and Harold could give back to the community. Edwin created a big park with flowers, trees, a pond, and playing fields in Old Greenwich. And when times were tough during the Great Depression, Crayola factory workers kept their jobs, and local farmers got work labeling and packing crayons. That is so very kind. If you are wanting to take some more time out of your day, you can go ahead and start researching the Great Depression. It's it's a miraculous time that we got out of, just like we kind of are going to get out of this together. After Edwin died in 1934, Crayola continued his mission to create innovative products that bring the wonder of color to people of all ages. So this color right here, or this picture right here, can you see that? So that's Edwin's wife, Alice, with 2 of her grandchildren. So those are her grandchildren. She looks sweet. Okay, and then I told you I would read you the acknowledgments. So I am not going to read all of this because these are all of the people. I don't know if you've looked in a book for the acknowledgement section, but the author will normally acknowledge everyone that helped them bring a book to life, and it's so very grateful of them that they do this. And so there are a ton of people. I'm just reading the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. There are some people at the Nonfiction Archaeology Institution. There's a lot, so go ahead and read those whenever you see them. It says, for my dad, generous entrepreneur, and my mom, who always believed in me, and B, from our author, for all the building, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, for all the budding young artists who pick up a brush or pencil or crayon doodling, drawing, dreaming, from SS, our illustrator. Well, if you happen to create a picture while I was reading this to you, please go ahead and comment them, send them to me. I'd love to see the pictures that you've drawn. If you would like to come up with your own Crayola crayon color based on the nature you see around you, kind of like Edwin did, I would also love to hear that. Or if you decide you see something in your house that makes you feel comfort and you want to name a crayon based off of that, that would be awesome. I can't wait to hear. Thanks for letting me read to you again. This one was really long, so if you're still with me, thank you.